welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about how many days a week should you lift weights. This question comes up a lot, but it doesn't really have a simple answer. Well, it does, but the simple answer is more along the lines of you need to lift enough days to progress. We're going to delve into all the important topics and concepts that we need to cover to give you some ideas that you can put into practice. So this largely depends on your training age goals, like the program you do, the template, which we'll go through later on. And if you're not a beginner, it's the total amount of volume that you've accumulated over the course of your training life. So we need to prioritize some exercise variables, including volume, frequency, intensity, and recovery time. Let's start with volume. I've discussed the importance of volume in other videos, but we're just going to run through it really quickly. So basically, it's really important that you progress volume either session to session, week to week, block to block, but you have this chronic increase in volume over the course of your training life. So someone who's untrained doesn't have to do as much volume as someone who has trained. So let's take a beginner, for example, who squats twice a week at 3 by whatever. So they only have to do 6 sets a week in order to progress, but intermediate lifter might have to do double that to continue to progress. Let's talk about frequency just really quickly. I've touched on it again in other videos, but let's talk about it in reference to how many days a week you should train. Dispersing volume across the week, mesocycles, macrocycles, whatever, is incredibly important. You need to prioritize frequency. So muscles need to be trained often, and muscle protein synthesis needs to be stimulated frequently. Essentially, training muscles once per week, which I've talked about, is probably going to be detrimental to your progress. I mean, this is really generally speaking. I've seen dudes become really big doing like arms, back, legs, shoulders, like just splitting it all up every day, but it's not probably the most optimal way to train. Now let's talk about, we just talked about frequency. Let's talk about intensity really briefly again, because I've discussed it in other videos. So unfortunately, you just can't do the same movement every day at 90% of your 1 rep max, generally speaking. So we need to manipulate your intensity so that frequency is prioritized, so you can practice the movement often and become better at it. Lastly, you'll need to consider your recovery time. So sessions need to be hard enough that you can progress, but they can't be too hard so that you compromise your recovery time. Overreaching functionally is an incredibly important component of an effective exercise intervention, but you can really easily overdo it and non-functionally overreach. So training just below your maximum recoverable volume and then purposely overreaching so you get that muscle supercompensation effect is super important for your long-term gains. So a combination of all these factors will determine how often you need to train or you need to lift in order to progress. If you're thinking, well, why haven't you just given me a straight up answer? Well, that's because I really haven't. I really can't. So to develop an intuitive exercise intervention, you need to grab all these concepts and put them into practice and understand them. But to give you a hand, because I'm like quite a pragmatic person, I don't want to see like a bunch of principles, like I want to see like, well, how do I put this into practice? I'm going to give you some templates that I've used in the past, with myself or clients that have yielded results. Let's start with the full body routine, which is a fantastic routine for beginners. It prioritizes frequency over volume, but beginners probably won't need to do as much volume in order to progress. Let's talk about the upper-lower routine now, which is a routine that prioritizes both of them pretty much the same. So you get some frequency, you get some volume. It's actually quite a good sort of template, and I use it in my own training. I use it in clients' training. It really depends on the client's goals, of course. But if I don't use a full body, if I don't use a full body, that's the one I use. One over there on my script. If I don't have a script, I just ramble on and on. Lastly, let's talk about a push-pull legs, which does prioritize volume over frequency. This doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's good either. It just means it prioritizes volume over frequency. So you perform this around 3 to 6 times per week. Same with the upper-lower. The full body, you're probably not going to do 6 times a week. You're probably going to do 3, maybe even 4, provided you manipulate all your acute exercise variables effectively and appropriately for you and your goal. One that I really did use in the past that I really thought was fantastic for me and my goals was an upper lower, and on the first 2 days you perform upper lower, you perform upper strength and then lower strength, and then you go push hypertrophy, so more high reps, more volume orientated, pull hypertrophy, again high reps, more volume, bodybuilding style stuff, and then lower hypertrophy, again high reps, more bodybuilding orientated stuff, and that got me pretty strong and pretty big. I'm not actually that big, but I put on some size relative to where I was at. Okay, so as you can see, there is no cookie cutter like one size fits all approach. I really hope you find that video really hope you found that video informative and you learned something, and you learned that I just can't throw programs at people because that would be really ignorant of all these acute exercise variables that I need to manipulate for you in order to progress. Thank you very much, guys. Speak to you next time.